Hey everybody, it's me again. And last week we took a little segue and we were talking about how to survive Valentine's Day, which I hope all of you got through just fine. I know you did. And if it was your first one, like I said, each one will get progressively easier. And as you continue on this journey, you get much better about realizing that so much of being okay is about taking care of yourself first. So on Valentine's Day, I hope you remember to do that and we're able to make some of the people around you feel special, which is a gift ultimately to yourself as well. But tonight we're talking about, I think, what is probably the number one biggest concern for people after they decide that they are definitely going to move forward with a divorce. And it really is, well, where are we going to live? What do we do with the house? How do we decide what's right in terms of moving forward? And this is where it gets really important for you and your spouse to decide that you are going to cooperate here to do what's best for your family as a whole. And that usually means first making some decisions about what you really want for your children and what is going to be most important for the children in terms of being okay with this entire process. So in the short term, that might mean our kids are babies. They don't know where we're living, or, they don't have an attachment to the house. Well, that's one of the things that you think about when you're making this decision. As the kids get older and schools are involved, this becomes a much bigger deal about what to do with the house. So really the first thing I always tell my clients to do is to just really think through what they want in terms of stability for the children. So if that means that we're not going to sell the house right away, that we're going to try and have it so that one parent is going to keep it and we're going to have essentially a home base for the kids, that is a decision that you're making jointly. It's in the best interest of your family as a whole for the emotional health of your children. So then the next step is, well, then we have to look really seriously at our finances and decide how we make this happen. But in my experience, it's a rare case where it's not possible to make it happen. A lot of times you have to get creative with the finances. Again, cooperation is key here, and deciding, support amounts and support packages, whether or not the mortgage is going to be paid instead of direct child support, whether or not you're going to have to cooperate in creating a support order only really for purposes of mortgage companies and future refinancing. A lot of people don't think about the fact that in order to get other people, your spouse's name off the mortgage, the person keeping the house is going to refinance. And even if it's an amicable divorce, the other party is then going to have to cooperate in having a support order entered, which is scary and people don't like that. But when you're cooperating and knowing you're doing it as more of a paperwork process in order to qualify for a refi, that's going to benefit everybody down the road. So that's something that people aren't aware of unless you get really good coaching and advice in terms of how to make all of these pieces happen. So you might need a mortgage broker who's really going to help you figure out what's required to refinance. The other big piece of this is to understand that if you fight, at least in my experience, and I don't know what state you are in, but if you fight, the court always looks at this as a business transaction and the house will always get sold. So it's much better to cooperate, in my opinion, and have a bigger goal for your family in mind. So if that's the stability of the children. And the party who is ultimately going to be moving out of the house has the flexibility to say, you know what, I'm not going to require a refi right this second. Maybe the other spouse can't qualify for a mortgage on their own based on the other factors the mortgage company looks at, like, debt to income ratio and things that you would be educated about during this process. So if the party keeping the house can't afford or qualify technically to put the mortgage into their own name, but the spouse leaving the house is confident that the bills will get paid, then you don't need to require that refinance to happen on any timeline. The court, if you fight and you go through the system, they are going to require that refinancing on a very short timeline. And that's why a lot of times the house gets sold, because if the other party can't meet that timeline, the only alternative is to put the house on the market. So that could end up with a lot of upheaval that you didn't intend and don't want for your family. So what I love about this and doing divorce this way or transitioning your family is the incredible flexibility it really gives you to make decisions for your family. So that's the first thing. So to make that big decision about what's most important, and then decide how are you going to make that happen financially, understanding that you might need to cooperate to get a court order in place on a support amount. And you don't need to necessarily go running to the courthouse for that. You can really learn a lot about what your support obligations might be if you went to court via your state's family court resources. Every state has a division of support or a family court, and with a couple of phone calls, they can put you on the road to the, they call them guidelines calculators. And you can start looking at some numbers yourself. And a mortgage broker can really talk to you about what that income needs to look like. So they're going to say to you, here's where that support number sort of needs to come in. And like I said, if you don't want to go down that road, then the answer is really to agree, well, how long is the other party willing to wait and allow their name to also be on the mortgage. And I have cases where clients say, you know what, we only need to keep the house for 18 more months. We're just waiting for the kids to switch into middle school, or we're just waiting to hit some important milestone. And then that's really an easy case for your family. You kind of agree to hang in there until the kids have reached that point, and then you've bought yourself a nice hunk of time where the kids are adjusting to the new reality, both parents are adjusting, and if the joint decision that the parents have made is that we are going to sell the house, we want the liquidity that's going to come out of selling the house, then you can really talk to your kids in a very positive way about, you know what, we've loved this house and you've spent a lot of important years here, but now we are all ready to take the next step into a really exciting next phase, and get the kids involved in thinking about their new bedrooms and, you know, moving closer to their friends, or whatever that next chapter is that you are going to be building for your family. But sometimes you just need a short transition period there, you know, 18 months, a year, however long it is, to get the kids to that next level. So there's for sure a lot that goes into thinking about the house, but what I like to say is that nothing is impossible. So if you really want that house to remain in the family for the children, with a little creativity and cooperation, in most cases that can likely happen. And, you know, if you're having trouble figuring it out, like I said, contact your local family court, or at that point you might need to look at all of your equitable distribution numbers or the division of assets. And next week we'll really be talking about how do you figure out where to go with the rest of the assets. How do we put the puzzle together to start really building an agreement that can move you forward into your next chapter with as much financial stability as possible given the circumstances. So feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to upload, as always, to YouTube, and tonight I'm going to try and see if I can post this on Instagram. So that'll be my next big hurdle that I'm trying to reach. But you might see me on Instagram. If not, Please share this with anybody you know who might be struggling or facing a transition. And always feel free, of course, to reach out or send me a comment on Facebook at Family Transitions. So I look forward to talking to you next week. Thanks.